Good morning. This is the time and place for the zoning administrator's hearing for May 6, 2009. My name is Edith Fuentes, and I will be conducting the hearing as hearing officer. We have 3 cases today, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panels located directly behind me. Let me just quickly go through our hearing procedure. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a variance shall be granted if 4 required findings are present. 1. That the strict application of the ordinance would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardship inconsistent with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance. 2. That there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood. 3. That the granting of the variance will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in such zone or neighborhood in which the property is located. And 4, that the granting of the variance will not be contrary to the objectives of the ordinance. Under the provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, a conditional use permit shall be granted if 4 required findings are present. 1. That the proposed use will be consistent with the elements and objectives of the general plan. 2. That the use and its associated structures and facilities will not be detrimental to the public health or safety, the general welfare, or the environment. 3. That the use and facilities will not adversely affect or conflict with adjacent uses or impede the normal development of surrounding property. And 4. That adequate public and private facilities will be provided for the use. For applications involving wireless telecommunications facilities, the following 2 findings, in addition to the previously mentioned 4 required findings, shall also be made. That no other feasible alternative site exists beyond the distance of 300 feet or more from the residential zone, and that specific physical or technical factors make infeasible the use of or co-location upon a pre-existing antenna support structure or pre-existing building or structure. If the evidence presented in the application and at the hearing meets the criteria just described, then the zoning administrator can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If the findings of fact are not evident, then the request will be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to property owners located within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. The hearing will proceed as follows. I will read a description of the application or the request, and then read reports received from other city departments and other letters or communications from interested parties. The case planner will make a brief presentation and overview of the case, and then make a recommendation. The applicant will be then asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be asked to present the case within a 15-minute time limit. Others in support of or in opposition to the application and any interested parties will be asked to come forward to speak. Again, clearly stating both name and address within a 3-minute time limit. Lastly, the applicant will be given the opportunity to make closing comments, if desired, in response to testimonies given by preceding speakers within a 5-minute time limit. The hearing will be closed and the case taken under submission. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at this hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and mailing address. I would like to emphasize that the date of the decision will be the date appearing on the letter. Under the appeal provisions of Title 30, Chapter 30 of the Glendale Municipal Code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the date of the decision. Anyone wishing to appeal may obtain forms and brochures on the procedures from our Building and Safety Section, Permit Services Center, located on the same floor of this building. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of these speaker forms, which have been provided by the front door, and submit it to our planning assistant. I would like to also inform everyone that the official proceedings of the zoning administrator's hearing are recorded on tape as part of public record. Our first case is Conditional Use Permit 2008-050. Location is 250 Mesa Lila Road. Applicant is Media Flow USA, Inc. And this is an application for a conditional use permit to co-locate wireless communication equipment onto an existing 140 feet high radio tower, install 2 ground-mounted satellite dishes, and mount 2 global positioning antennas onto the existing equipment shelter within the ROS, Residential Open Space, Floor Area District 3, located at 250 Mesa Lila Road, described as a portion of J.G. Hendrickson and John Turner Acres in the Baudry's Mountains, Section 5, Township 1, Range 13, Sections 31 and 32, Township 2, Range 13 West. And we have a fully described legal description on file if you want to read it and go through it. So. Okay, let me just quickly go through some of the comments we received. I have an email and a letter from David Moss, but so I think you're going to go through that. I'm not going to read the letter on file. Okay. From fire prevention or fire engineering. They have some suggested conditions regarding providing documentation for legal rights or access, and add Verdugo Peak to the address block. Ensure that the site is protected from vandalism. And since this is a high fire hazard area, they have some regulations and restrictions. You can get a copy of this if you want. Can you close that door? Okay, no major concerns from other city departments. Do we have any email or any communications from the neighbors? Nothing?
Staff didn't receive any other correspondences.
Okay. That's good. Okay, and with that, I'm going to ask Dennis Joe, case planner, to give us a little overview of the request. Joe?
Thank you. Good morning, Zoning Administrator. The case before you once again is PCUP 2008-050, located at 250 Mesa Lila, zoned residential open space, floor area District 3. This project is category exempt from CEQA. The existing property is located in the Verdugo Mountains and surrounded by special recreational zones, open space properties. The property is approximately 13 acres and irregularly in shape. Currently, there are 3 existing towers, 140-foot high wireless towers, and one of them is described as C, is 120 feet in height. On plans, they're described as towers A, B, and C. To provide a little bit of background on this property, conditional use permit number 10408 was approved and to renew and maintain 2 existing radio towers and equipment shelters. They are described as B and C on submitted plans for this conditional use permit. And this conditional use permit 10408 will expire on October 15th, 2009. On August 25th, 2005, due to unsafe and unstable soil conditions, the zoning administrator authorized the relocation of B and its equipment to be relocated 10 feet away to its new location, as indicated as Tower A. B was never demolished in its relocation to replace Tower A. Currently, there's 3 towers on site labeled as A, B, and C once again on submitted plans. Towers A and C are still valid and permitted by conditional use permit 10408 CU. However, B was not demolished during by the applicant during the relocation process and is no longer valid under any building permits or entitlements. Overall staff analysis is, since the request doesn't propose any major modifications to the existing towers on site, the proposed co-location equipment will not interfere with open space, fire access roads, or existing telecommunication facility uses. The proposed project will provide valuable service to the residents of Glendale and the surrounding communities. The use and associated structures and facility will not be detrimental to the public health or safety or the general welfare or the environment. Staff believes that all the findings can be made in a positive manner due to the fact the project is requesting to only co-locate new wireless communications equipment to an existing wireless telecommunication tower described as A, and no major modifications are proposed on the other towers or other equipment shelters or anywhere on the site. Staff suggests for the hearing officer to consider the conditions as mentioned on the staff report. However, I would like to read out condition number 8. Prior to issuance of the building permit for this co-location, Tower B shall be removed. Condition number 7 is to security fences surrounding B shall be installed or constructed to ensure wireless telecommunication services can be provided in a safe and effective manner. This concludes staff's presentation, and that is all. Thank you.
Okay. Dennis, just a quick question. Has there been any kind of communication with the applicant or whoever's responsible for Tower B as far as removing that tower? Have you had any?
With the direct owners of the towers, staff has not communicated with them, but with the direct applicant who's requesting to co-locate new equipment onto the towers, there have been correspondences between us, just letting us know as staff's position and a copy of staff report.
Okay. And I'm assuming you will address that issue, whoever. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have 3 speakers card. Who's going to present the case? Jamie Hall. Come on down.
Good morning. My name is Jamie Hall. I'm outside counsel for the applicant, Flow TV, formerly known as Media Flow USA, Inc. My address is 100 Ocean Gate, Suite 1400, Long Beach, California, 90802. And I'm with the firm of Channel Law Group. I have with me today John Dome, the zoning manager for Crown Castle, the owner of the tower that we're discussing today, or the towers that we're discussing today. Crown's land use consultant, David Moss, is also here this morning to provide testimony and give you some background information, which is really important in understanding the issues as well. I prepared a short presentation to supplement the report provided this morning by Mr. Joe. However, before I begin, I'd like to thank Dennis for his time and effort in this process. We originally filed this application in November 2008, and we encountered a few interesting twists and turns along the way. And Mr. Joe has been extremely accessible, and I've spoken with and met with him multiple times since we originally filed this application. And as an applicant, I want you to know that that's the number one most important thing to us, as an open and fluid dialogue with land use jurisdictions. I just want to thank you for your time. Flow TV is a new communication service that is being made possible as a result of the much talked about transition to digital television, which is currently scheduled to take place next month on June 12th, 2009. As you may be aware, traditional broadcasters are moving to a digital format, and as a result, they are vacating a large part of the radio frequency spectrum that they've been using for decades. The FCC has auctioned off this particular part of the spectrum, and Flow TV was the recipient of two channels, former UHF Channel 55 and 56. And what Flow does is broadcast television, both cable channels such as Comedy Central and broadcast stations such as ABC, NBC, CBS, to mobile devices such as cellular telephones. Flow is authorized to go live and provide their service on June 13th, next month. And we're in the process of rapidly deploying a nationwide network to provide this service. Now, Flow is classified as a wireless communications service by the FCC under Part 27 of the FCC rules and regulations. We're not a cellular company. We're not a PCS company. We're regulated under Part 27 of the FCC rules. Flow's facilities have a much larger coverage area, and like radio stations and broadcasters, Flow chooses sites that are higher in elevation so as to maximize signal reception and coverage. After an extensive review of Flow's coverage objectives, the topography in Glendale, and available co-location opportunities, we determined that Crown's Tower atop the Verdugo Peak was the best possible location to provide our new service. Now, as Mr. Joe indicated, Flow proposes to mount a 12-foot UHF pylon antenna to Tower A and to add 2 satellite dishes to the site. The dishes will be ground-mounted and adjacent to an existing equipment shelter. And just so you know, the way the system works is the dishes actually receive signal kind of like direct TV from a satellite in the sky, and then that signal is sent up to an antenna on the tower, which then broadcasts the signal so people can receive it on their mobile devices. Additionally, 2 small GPS antennas will be mounted on the roof of an existing shelter, and a small receive-only antenna will be mounted to the existing cable bridge. Finally, accessory equipment will be installed inside an existing equipment shelter at the site. Now, Flow's proposed co-location is minimally impactful as it utilizes an existing tower and an existing equipment shelter. Flow supports staff's recommended approval of this application and agrees with staff's finding that the proposal is minimally impactful with regard to aesthetics, and also that it promotes the siting of wireless facilities on existing structures, which we think is an admirable goal. However, Flow is somewhat concerned with condition number 8 as read out by staff. That's the condition, or that's staff's recommendation that Flow's building permit be conditioned on the demolition of Tower B. Mr. Dome and Mr. Moss are here today to discuss this in more detail, as they are, as Crown is the owner of the tower. Tower B, and they'll be able to provide a more thorough analysis and provide background information. But before we get to that, I would like to note that Flow supports a proposal that will be discussed by Crown after I finish speaking. This proposal would remove condition number 8, which, as I mentioned, places a limitation on the issuance of Flow's building permit in exchange for a requirement that Crown file for a land use permit by July 1st, and if staff requests, post a demolition bond naming the city as the obligee. Flow supports this proposal because it better advances the public safety and ensures that a legal mechanism exists to resolve the situation, either by issuance of a valid land use permit or by taking down the tower. This proposal the proposal that Crown will discuss is a far more effective enforcement mechanism than withholding Flow's construction permit. In sum, Flow is excited about the imminent deployment of its new service and looks forward to moving forward to constructing its proposed facility as soon as possible so that the citizens of the city of Glendale can benefit from the long-promised benefits of the digital transition. Flow would like to deploy service as soon as possible after the June 12th digital TV deadline, and Flow supports staff's recommended approval of the project. But we would respectfully request that the city consider Crown's recommended alternative with regard to dealing with Tower B. At this point, I'd like to turn over the presentation to David Moss, Crown's land use consultant.
Thank you.
Or John Doe.
Good morning, Ms. Fuentes and Mr. Joe. Thank you for hearing our case this morning. My name is John Dome. I'm with Crown Castle. We are the owner and the operator.
Is it D-O-H-M?
It's D-O-H-M.
Thank you.
My office location is 510 Castillo Street in Santa Barbara, California. And I'm here to voice support for this application, but also just to introduce the city to Crown Castle as the new operator, introduce myself to you. I will be the point person, hopefully for years to come. If there's any issues or calls that need to be made, they can certainly come to me. I would also like to state for the record that Crown Castle now has an office in Irvine, California as well that's fully staffed with operations technicians. This was not the case in 2006. In 2006, Crown Castle acquired the assets of Mountain Union Telecom, and this site was in their ownership at that time under a lease with the Collins Family Trust. At the time we acquired these 3 towers, it was Crown's understanding that all 3 were lawfully permitted and valid sites. It was not until just recently, actually until MediaFlow's application, that it was discovered that Tower B had a condition for removal. Crown Castle is in a different position financially than Mountain Union. We're in a completely different position in terms of business objectives, and we have studied Tower B very carefully and wish to maintain and that tower. There are some improvements that need to be made, but I just want to state for the record that we too would agree to the conditions that Mr. Hall put forward. And to discuss this whole situation in just a little greater detail, I'd like to just go ahead now and turn this over to Mr. Moss. He's articulated our position very well and our suggestions in his April 30th letter, but I think it'd be important if David came to the podium now and just explain this in a little more detail, because we certainly can appreciate that the city is probably not happy about the current situation, but I'm really here to say that, we were unaware of that and we fully intend on correcting
And I am
that situation.
very unhappy. So let me just clarify one thing. What you're telling me is that condition was never disclosed to you by the previous owner.
No, when we acquire...
And in doing your due diligence, you never found out that there's that case on file and that condition on file?
We acquired, I think, about 500 sites from Mountain Union. There typically is financial due diligence. There is some due
But
diligence
you know,
with
the
zoning.
the bottom line is what I'm saying is, it is still your obligation to comply
Absolutely.
with that condition.
Absolutely,
Okay, I
and
just
we-
want to make that very, very clear.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
and we
much.
intend on doing
Okay.
that.
Mr. David Moss.
Morning, C.A. Fuentes, Dennis Joe. I'm David Moss, 613 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 105 in Santa Monica, California, 90401. For the past close to 25 years, we as a company and myself as an individual have been working on wireless telecommunication projects all across California, and I have the honor of having worked on many here in Glendale. This particular project site dates back to 1958. I think the city was ahead of its time when you realize that many cities in 1958 didn't even have any regulations or codes in place to deal with the deployment of wireless communication facilities of any kind. It's been my opportunity, I would say, to have worked for Mountain Union Telecom, and I think the letter that we've submitted dated April 30th helps, at least for the record, to describe how we all came to be in what I would consider a rather uncomfortable situation. And I'd like to do my best this morning as a representative of Crown Castle to make clear the history so that we can move forward and help the city make a good decision on behalf of both Media Flow, the community, and the manager and owner of the towers, Crown Castle. So having said that, I want to take a moment to just make sure this is clear, because I can see it's already been muddied. When Jamie Hall, who represents Media Flow, now Flow TV, and I met with staff member Dennis Joe in December, I may not have been entirely clear, but I'd like to be now, that Moss & Associates only represents Crown Castle. And we have sort of been acquired by Crown, so to speak, not as a company, but as their consultant of record, because as soon as Media Flow applied for this CUP and did their own due diligence and realized that there was an inconsistency here, they immediately notified Crown. Moss & Associates had already been engaged by Crown in general to work on sites. This site became one that we then were asked to work on and figure out the history. So the high points of the letter that we have submitted are in good faith and are truthful, and that is that there's a series of events that no one could have second-guessed. One, that Mountain Union was in the process of, in 2006, selling all of their nationwide assets to Crown Castle. And two, that even though John Dome is the zoning manager for the Western U.S. for Crown Castle, as he testified, Crown, like many tower companies, unfortunately does virtually no due diligence on land use permitting. They do almost entirely due diligence on financial matters. And three, it was after Moss & Associates had looked at all of the documents prepared by Zeiser Kling, the geotechnical consultants of record on behalf of MUT. MUT made a decision prior to the construction of Tower A that it was going to be financially infeasible for MUT to take on the responsibility to try to stabilize B. And at the same time, B had been destabilized.
Hold on. I'm going to give you another 2 or 3 minutes.
Thank
so
you. If you would,
finish.
actually, I could be the interested party speaker, and then we don't have to be latched together
Good.
with Media
That's
Flow.
what I'm saying. Well, you're officially representing them, so I can't do that.
Okay. So
Okay.
the bottom line is that Mountain Union did not have the financial stamina. They did not take a very bold approach to say that it was in a short time frame worth their effort to try to figure out every possible way to maintain Tower B. So in good faith, we did come forward and we did obtain permission from the city. And I don't ever want that to be a situation where the city feels they were deceived, because as we zoom to the current time, what is now clear is the following. The site was destabilized in the area of Tower B based on some very significant pulsed short-term rain events in 2004 and 2005. And the ground has ceased moving and has ceased its destabilization at the same rate that was observed by the geotechnical consultants of record in 2005. as a result, it's now clear that Crown Castle has a relatively sane and feasible path to go forward to try to maintain Tower B. And again, all of this has now come to Crown's attention as of December of 2008. And what we have proposed in our letter, I know will not really be discussed at length this morning, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that Crown has every intention of doing everything possible to seek a land use permit and to legalize this tower. And they are fully aware that in doing that, it's a two-pronged test. One, they have to make sure they can meet all the building codes. They have to satisfy the city engineer, who actually is aware of this tower site. And they also have to look at the consequences if they're not successful. The consequences of not being successful are significant and should be considered here. The Tower B is a large 140-foot tower with a big base. And Tower A, the existing tower that MediaFlow has gone in, is a similar tower. But Tower A plus Tower C are unable to accommodate the number of co-locations that are currently out there today and that are perceived to be important into the future. This continues to be an extremely isolated ROS zone site and a sea of SR zone property. And so what we would like the city to consider is that we think that we have an opportunity to put a hard and fast date and a defendable mechanism by which Crown has to apply for CUP. We would be the consultants of record, and whereby, if it's deemed feasible and important to the city zoning administrator, that there be some type of security in place so that in the event that the CUP land use permit is not issued, or it's not issued, appealed, and still not issued, the Crown, if they refuse for any reason to demolish the tower in the time frame that the city demands, there would be a bond in place. Crown has, by its appearance this morning, John Dome is a very experienced planner. He actually is a registered planner. He knows the implications of not complying with the city, particularly in a situation where they have several towers in place and they don't choose to ruffle feathers when they have to continue having an operation in this city. So having said that, we'd like the zoning administrator to take under advisement the contents of the letter that we've provided. We apologize to Dennis Joe for any confusion we've created, but like him, I do believe this is a very interesting opportunity to have given staff quite a history background that might have been impossible to otherwise have come forward with in the short time that this project's been under review.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you to stop there. The facts, we have an existing condition that was never met. So there is an existing violation, and that's the one that really confused Dennis. What you're trying to tell me now is you have a pending application, but you're also willing to file for another conditional use permit to try and keep that existing tower which is in violation. And you're willing to provide documentation or some kind of a bond that in the failure of, let's say, removing it, if the CUP is not approved, then the city can go ahead and have it removed. You're asking me to trust you one more time. Well, you were not the previous applicant, but I will look into the other matter. Meanwhile, the request pending is just a simple co-location to an existing tower that was previously approved subject to removal of another existing tower. So this goes on a loop and a chain. One is connected to the other. I'm going to tell you right now, I may not be able to issue the conditional use permit decision on this new application until and unless I get some concrete something that would assure me that that tower B in question is going to be taken care of. So I'm letting you know right now. So if you're shooting for June 13th, starting with your live coverage or something, that may not happen until and all the necessary paperwork and evidence are in my office. So I'm just letting you know what's going to happen. If you want to move fast, then we can talk about the other issue at hand, because this decision is going to hinge on what you're going to do with that other case. And meanwhile, I'm like I said, this is a co-location. I have no further question or information that I need. I just want to ask, is there anybody else here who would like to speak in support or in opposition to this application? Seeing none, do you have any closing comments, or whoever is going to do a closing comments?
Jamie will close on behalf of MediaFlow, but I do want to say
Let's give them 5 minutes. So
the purpose of our meeting with Dennis Joe in December, where I attended on behalf of Crown Castle, hindsight is a beautiful thing. If I had zoomed to today and known what we might be up against, I would have probably recommended to our client that even without any further discussion in December, we would have filed. But I must be truthful, and of course staff should comment in case I'm not being. I didn't get the feeling that filing at that time was what staff actually would have recommended.
I would have recommended at that time removal. That's if you have talked to me. I would say just remove it, because since 2005, it's been 4 years that thing has been in violation. So,
with the institutional knowledge that we have, I would say that I'm going to strongly recommend to my client that he heed your words, and I think that we could probably accelerate the application.
You either remove or file something as fast as you
Understood.
can. Yeah.
I think we'll take that to heart and head.
Okay.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Hall, thank you.
I just want to say thank you again for your time and efforts today, and I do appreciate your comments. MediaFlow, Flow TV, formerly known as MediaFlow, this is I just wanted to again let you know that this is an ideal location for us. We're using former UHF channel 55 and 56, and broadcasters seek locations that are at higher elevations, and this is an ideal location for us. And it's unfortunate that this has come about, but I feel confident that the owner of the facility, we were just discussing, that they will move forward quickly on filing the necessary land use application to authorize the adjacent facility and to provide any reports that may be required to demonstrate that the site can be safely maintained. As this is my first time before the City of Glendale, I'm unsure exactly what will transpire going forward. I understand that you're going to take this under advisement and issue a decision at a later date.
By our code, I have 6 months to issue a decision, 180 days. I normally would issue my decision within 10 days to 14 days if I have all the necessary information to make an educated decision. But with your case, I'm going to put the burden on your side to prove that in good faith you're coming before me and doing something with Tower B. Okay?
And if rather than just summarily issuing a denial after we file the application, if you have additional inquiries, how would the procedure go forward on that?
After issuing my decision, you have 15 days to appeal my decision to the Planning Commission.
We would certainly hope that wouldn't be the case, and we will move forward as
I know, you just
rapidly
gave me
as
an
possible.
idea. So I'm just kidding.
Oh, no. Just trying to be...
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to go ahead, take this case under submission, and we'll let you know. Thank you for coming. Our next case is variance 2009-007. Location is 418 to 420 South Brand Boulevard. Applicant is Michael Maniscalchi. This is an application for a standards variance to allow a change of use within an existing CAO, commercial auto office zone, permitted primary uses, and the conditional uses with the project site being 3,700 square feet with 53.33 feet of street frontage on Brand Boulevard, described as portion of Lot 1, Valley View Tract. And let me just quickly go through some of the comments. I have an email from Development Services, but just basically going through the South Brand Boulevard specific plan, so nothing there. Fire prevention, suggested condition, installation of automatic fire sprinkler system. Neighborhood, community development, neighborhood services. They have an existing code enforcement case on the property, and the business owner must obtain all required zoning use certificates and sign permits prior to occupying the space. And they also have comments regarding unpermitted sign at the location. Okay, those are all the comments I have. And case planner Chris Baxter will do a overview presentation.
Madam Chair, excuse me. There's
Thank you.
photos.
Oh, okay.
Also, Ms. Fuentes, if you look at the monitor here, you can see on either the large screen or the one to your left.
Yeah, where the property
If you'll
is.
see the little kind of the bluish color, that's the property in question, and the land uses surrounding it are separate properties. Also behind you, ma'am, we have the site plan. We actually have two versions of a site plan. The upper colored version is let's say, an as-built condition, and the lower one below it is one where they are proposing with tenant improvement. They want to add a wall there to create 3 spaces. And if you look to your upper right, you'll see the zoning map, and on the zoning map, zone, which is that commercial, and it's other that zoning. Radius is the plan, etc. Included a lot of that in your staff report. So, as you probably mentioned and in the notice, the reason that we're here is that the applicant is asking to be allowed to use other uses that are listed in the CA/O zone, but are not allowed if this lot is less than 13,000 square feet or has a 90-foot frontage. And so staff reviewed that with other city departments and with senior staff and discussed this issue because it was one that we understand that in 1992 when the South Brand Specific Plan was adopted by City Council, the main idea was to provide for the orderly development, the economic growth, improve traffic circulation and parking conditions in that neighborhood so that there wouldn't be conflicts between the commercial and residential and auto-related uses. And one of the purpose, and I kind of like to read this one straight away here, is that a purpose described in this zone is to provide for new and used motor vehicle sales, leasing, service, and general repair uses within a full-service new car dealership, and, where I'd like to emphasize, and to provide flexibility for future development trends by permitting commercial uses. Now, this occurred in 1992. There's been a code change recently that we kind of analyzed here at in the staff level for uses that are under 2,000 square feet. And that code section, in fact, I don't think I provided you a copy, but I made a copy this morning. You're probably familiar with this code section here, ma'am,
Yeah.
right here. And we noticed that within the uses that the applicant is able to use within the CAO zone, if you had a larger site, are a number of those same ones that you're holding in your hand. There's a lot of interchangeability. So we thought, since this particular code section came up recently for these small uses, and because one of the purposes of the South Brand Pacific Plan is to be flexible, to provide flexibility, we thought maybe we might be able to look at this as an opportunity to help some of the economic development in this neighborhood. Also, my staff report, to kind of tie into that as part of our research, staff did a site inspection. We walked up and down the streets. We walked around the neighborhoods, and what you see in the in the overhead view there, it is surrounded mostly by auto-related dealerships and parking lots, but there is also other retail uses there. So when we talked to the development services staff, and just real quickly to mention what they said here, they agree with the general intent of the South Brand Pacific Plan for those consolidation of smaller lots for the auto dealers. However, one of the things they argued and discussed with staff was their concern, particularly during these economic times, that unduly restricting a property owner from attracting a wider range of tenants could prolong vacancies, could lead to physical deterioration and blighted conditions within this boulevard, which would in turn adversely affect the viability of the Brand Boulevard of cars. So staff has made a recommendation to consider approval with the condition limiting the uses here to this code section within Chapter 30.32, so that those uses that are allowed in the CAO zone, both primary and conditional uses, that would be the same ones allowed in this Chapter 30.32 that I gave to you. If those two can interchange and work, then we feel that that might be an alternative solution to provide some flexibility, which we feel would be consistent with the general plan's intent. And we made a note that anything that would be of a higher count, that would increase the intensity of parking or traffic circulation area, that we felt that would not be consistent. So that we based our recommendation on approval with that limitation, and as a minimum, those two conditions. And that concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Okay. I have no questions at this time, so to present the case, Mr. Michael Maniscalchi.
Good morning, Madam
morning.
Zoning Administrator, members of staff. Thanks for your
Welcome
time
back.
today.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be on this side of the podium for once. My name is Mike Maniscalchi. My address is 1111 North Brand Boulevard, Suite 200, Glendale, California, 91202. I'm representing the property owners Richard and Sharon Chalakian for the property at 418-420 South Brand Boulevard, Glendale, California, 91204, which is the subject of today's hearing. We are here today to request a variance to divide the existing 3,700 square foot building into 3 spaces via tenant improvements, which is situated on 3,700 square feet of land in the commercial auto office zone in the South Brand Boulevard specific plan. This will be done to the existing structure with no additional floor area. This division of the existing space would allow changes of use within the permitted and conditionally permitted uses of the CAO zone without having the required minimum lot size of 13,000 square feet or 90 feet of continuous frontage along Brand Boulevard. This property was built in 1932 per public record. The original building was assessed at approximately 2,578 square feet. The building was added on in 1963 and 1972 respectfully, per city records, with permits to achieve the 3,700 square feet that exists today. The property is currently vacant. However, the last permitted certificate of use and occupancy lists an employment agency from January 8, 1997. The building was, however, occupied by a comedy club from 1999 through 2008. We are in a very unique situation with this property. The property has been vacant for nearly 9 months, and while we would have had numerous prospective tenants to lease the property owner has been unable to comply because of the current zoning, which we will address with the 4 findings. We have tried every option available to us with no success. This is the only reason we are requesting a variance. We're out of options. We are not requesting items that go way beyond the intent of the zone or an increase to the existing size of the structure. We are requesting a standards variance because the owner's property has been made non-conforming by the zone change. We don't have 90 feet of continuous frontage or a 13,000 square foot lot. We never have. This property was developed in the 1930s as 3,700 square feet. It's 3,700 square feet today. Our findings are as follows. And would you like me to read the findings into record?
Yes, please.
Okay. How will the strict application of the provisions of any such ordinance noted above result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships related to the property inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the ordinance? Our response is, there are no additional available lots the owner could combine with this site to meet the 13,000 square foot requirement. The site is a corner lot built lot line to lot line. The site and building pre-existed the South Brand Boulevard specific plan. There are no auto dealerships adjacent to this site that would have a use or need for it. Finding B. What exceptional circumstances or conditions apply to the property involved or to the intended use or development of the property that do not apply generally to other property in the same zone or neighborhood? Our response is, this lot has been built out and occupied for 77 years until 1992 when the South Brand specific plan made it non-conforming. Filling the property with the same use each time it is vacant is unrealistic and nearly impossible. The property is a small corner property with no on-site parking. Finding C. Why will the granting of the variance not be detrimental to the public welfare? We would be complying with the current code and the list of permitted uses from the CAO zone. Granting a variance from the lot size is not a detriment to the public welfare. Furthermore, improving this site and providing quality tenants will benefit the neighboring businesses and residents, thus increasing general welfare, health, and safety. Finding D. Why will the granting of the variance be in keeping with the objectives of the ordinance? The required dimensions of the lot are not meant to serve the intent of the zone. Therefore, not meeting them will not be contrary to the objective of the ordinance. The described project will visually enhance the area and facilitate more efficient land utilization. Now, we understand the position the city was in back in the early 90s with the auto dealerships, and they were threatening to leave at that time. They were being entertained by many other cities to come and relocate there, and we understand why the city made that zone change at that time. However, today, the auto dealerships are primarily built out, and they don't have any other need for space, and us small property owners in the area were stuck. If the building was demolished today or burned down, we would still have to come in front of you and ask for a variance just to rebuild because we don't have a 13,000 square foot lot. So, this is our last stop. We're hopeful that the city can review the case we've presented, and we're available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
And let me just Staff submitted a list of uses that you can interchange under the 2,000 square feet section of the zoning code. Have you seen this?
Oh, yeah.
And you're okay with the uses, or?
As far as we're concerned, it's reasonable and it's fair. We're not asking to have free list of
Anything, yeah.
uses throughout the zones. We're willing to comply with the uses that are in place now.
Okay. And the only other thing that I'm not quite and this is for Chris.
Yes, ma'am.
As a matter of fact.
Yes, ma'am, sorry.
A couple of your suggested conditions
Yes.
talk about Chapter 30.32 regarding parking and loading.
Yes, ma'am.
Currently, and for the last 77 years, the site never had parking.
Correct.
So, if they're going to go with the change of use that you have here, 3,700 square feet of building area divided by 3 is a lot less than 2,000 square feet each. And even if they decide to divide it into 2, it's still 2 spaces less than 2,000 square feet each. I don't think any of these conditions regarding parking and loading would be required as far as if they go with the change of uses within the list that you have here and less than 2,000 square feet each. Then,
That is, yes.
because I don't want to impose something that you can never meet.
We appreciate that.
Number one, there's no available lot anymore that they can combine. That I take into consideration. And walking the area back and forth, there's really nothing except on-street parking that you can use. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the 2 conditions here when
Being
it's
too
about.
restrictive? Do you feel they're too restrictive?
Well, I don't even think it should apply as far as parking and loading requirements when there's really nothing that, I can't squeeze anything out of this site
Well, I think
when
see,
there's
they have-
nothing really as far as parking's,
And maybe I misunderstood, because I had assumed that those conditions were for if we pursued a use outside of what was permitted in the CAO zone, we would then be subject to those parking
Exactly.
conditions.
Well, and that's why I brought out the issue that if you are going to change or interchange uses within the list allowed here under 2,000 square feet, it doesn't. It says without the need to provide additional parking beyond that currently provided on-site or is covenanted off-site spaces. So there's nothing on-site, so I can't, like I said, I can't require anything.
That's okay with
I'm
us.
just making that very clear because I don't think I'm going to add any of these conditions as long as you stick with the uses listed in here and tenants subdividing that 3,700 square feet into 2 is even less than 2, 3 is even a lot less, so.
We're
There's
only
still-
requesting to do what's allowed within the zone.
Okay.
I think, Madam Zoning Administrator, I think the reason we did that, we were thinking that as direction for staff, that there was some wording that staff, when they look at the little site, years down the road, let's say, and they look at the site and they go, oh, it's less than 3,700 square feet, 90 feet, less than that. So we have a problem here. Then they say, oh, well, there was a variance. They go look at the variance, and we're thinking if there was some language in the variance that said, oh, okay, as long as you comply with this code section, then you can just do whatever. So maybe,
I will take care of that when
Okay.
it comes
All right.
to the list of uses that
Yes.
you submitted.
yes.
That's the one I'm going to look
The
into.
list that you have here and the list in the CAA zone, there's a lot of those CAO zone uses, a lot of them are in that same list. And those that are interchangeable is what we were thinking
Mm-hmm. Right,
would
and I'm
work.
going to go with that
Yes, ma'am.
less
Okay.
than 2,000 square feet.
Yes,
Okay.
Thanks
I
very
just
much.
want to make it very clear.
If you have any questions, we're available.
That's it. Thank you. Mr. Joseph Stitik. I'm seeing a lot of these old-timers here.
This is showing up this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mrs. Fuentes. Thanks for entertaining my comments. We represent the property owners directly to the north of this property, and if you look at the Google map, it's the parking lot plus the two white roofed buildings. The address there is 408 through 414 South Brand.
Okay.
I'm here to express our support of this standards variance. We believe it's necessary. When the South Brand specific plan was put in place, it created these anomalies up and down the boulevard, and we've been dealing with them ever since, and I'm sure the zoning administrator and her staff has been dealing with them, trying to find a way for long-term property owners to get their properties released when there's a change in tenancy, and the change in tenancy triggers all kinds of requirements.
Right.
So we believe this is a valid use. We think it'll be a substantial improvement to the area. Hopefully it'll help us get our building leased. We've been on the market with that building, which is a multi-tenant configured building, for over a year trying to secure tenants. And the marketplace is, to say the least, challenging. That building will have to be substantially remodeled and upgraded in order to comply with current tenant requirements, which will be undertaken as we secure tenants. But we are here in support of that. The owners of the property that I represent, who live in Northern California, are in support of the granting of this variance.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak in support or in opposition to this application? Do you have did you fill out one of these? Okay. Go ahead. Come on.
Hello, my name is Pete Morabian,
Oh, there you go. I got it. Thank you.
coming from 411 South Brand Boulevard, which is the Hyundai site that's west across the street from the building. As a member of the Brand Boulevard cars, we have a very difficult time for property. And as they said when they were trying to change the zoning, that we have big dealerships. It's not the case. BMW still uses the lot across the street. They have off-site storage, and we need every bit of space that we can get for the automotive dealerships. The automotive dealerships are one of the major supporters and tax generators for the city of Glendale. And to change the zoning and make
We're not. I just want to make it very clear. We're not changing the
I'm
zoning.
sorry.
We're just allowing a change of use
Yeah.
from one tenant to another kind of tenant.
to allow this variance would just put hardships on any dealership. One of their first findings was that there is no adjacent lot for a dealership to operate in. If you look directly east to it, that's the old Guy Schmidt lot. That's right now it's not occupied, but that is a tenant that comes into that building can occupy that lot. It's just difficult for us dealerships, and I just wanted to come here and voice my opinion because we don't have too much space. And any other dealership, Honda was kind of looking at Colonial Honda. I know they're not here, looking to take that space. They need the frontage, and you can combine the frontage with of the old Guy Schmidt and their lots to make a dealership. And I think it's important to not allow the variance and keep the plan that was initiated in the early 90s. Also, if they do they get the variance, parking issues will arise. If they're doing it in two separate spaces or three separate spaces inside, there is no parking in front or on the side of the building. So whoever is coming in, if it's not automotive use where they could allow the whole property to be combined and use the other spaces, it's just going to make more of a parking constraint on us, on the customers that are coming into our dealerships. Also, let's see, that place can be used as like an automotive broker, a small showroom. There can be uses for that property without having that variance going in there. And I just wanted to voice my opinion on the variance and suggest that it not take place.
Thank you very much. Have you seen the list of other uses that they...
Actually, I have not seen the list.
You should look at it because I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It's the same thing that they're asking for, but no matter what they do on site, they're going to have to go for a variance through this process to allow those uses to happen.
Okay.
So I just want to I think you're thinking of another dealership. Those are the uses that may go in there.
Well, actually, I'm in support of another dealership going
Yeah.
in there. I'm not in support of, like it says over here, a tavern or a daycare
Well,
center.
unfortunately, that's not
I know.
the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Okay.
Let me have that paper again. And thank you very much. Is there anybody else here who would like to speak in support or in opposition to this application? Okay. Oh, I have another. Mr. Merabian, can you just come up here? You're with Hyundai.
Glendale Hyundai.
Right. How long have you been there?
I've been at that place for 2 years, but previously I think it opened up in 2002 with Guy Schmidt.
Oh, okay. 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And this building has been there for the last 77 years.
Which one? The
The building that's going
in
for a
question?
variance.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any closing comments, Mr. Maniscalchi? Or forever hold your peace?
I would only say that we appreciate your time, and we respect what the intent of the ordinance is, and we're trying to meet that every way we can. And like I said earlier, this is really our last stop. We've tried every option available to us up to this point, and the property owner has run out of options. So
Okay.
we're hoping that you will find the required findings and vote in favor of the variance.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you very
Appreciate it.
much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead, take this case under submission, and thank you very much for coming. Oh, is James or Rudder here for the last case? Oh. Okay, our last case is conditional use permit 2009-004. Location is 1479 East Broadway. Applicant is Sakina Basray. This is an application to renew an expired conditional use permit allowing the continued operation of a child daycare center in conjunction with a place of worship located at 1479 East Broadway in the R2250 medium-density residential zone, described as a portion of lots 7 through 9, tract number 4491, and lot 16 of tract number 4899. And let me just see if we have, okay. I have a letter from a Mrs. Alatorre. In support of the application. From a Mr. Ralph Chauvelin. Basically in support of the application. And I think that's okay. No major concerns from other departments, so Mr. James Combe.
Good morning, Madam Administrator. This
Good
morning
morning.
I'm presenting 1479 East Broadway, an application for the renewal of an expired conditional use permit allowing the continued operation of a daycare center in conjunction with a place of worship located in the R2250 medium-density residential zone. The location is to allow, again, the continued operation of a daycare center on the grounds of a church. Given demand, the applicant is also requesting that the capacity from the previous conditional use permit of 35 children be increased to 40 children. I believe the facility is currently licensed to accommodate 35 children by the state. And so when I spoke with Sakina, that would be something down the road within the next 5 or 7 years, assuming conditional use permit is awarded, that they would have the flexibility to go to the state and increase capacity. Staff believes that all the findings can be made regarding the conditional use permit to allow the continued operation of a daycare facility in a positive manner. The proposed project has been previously approved for the same request several times in the past. Staff suggests that the zoning administrator consider the following conditions in addition to those applied under previous conditional use permits, should the requested conditional use permit be approved. No more than 40 students shall occupy the premises at any time, and that landscaping areas in the parking lot shall be refurbished and maintained in good condition, free of weeds, trash, with appropriate live plant material, including trees, and that if granted, the conditional use permit be authorized for a period of 7 years. This concludes staff's presentation. I'll be available for any questions. I give the floor back to you. Thank you.
Okay, I have no question at this time, so let me just call on Sakira Basrai.
Good morning. My name is Sakina Basrai, and my school address is 1479 East Broadway, Glendale, California, 91205. I am the director and owner of St. Anne Montessori School. St. Anne Montessori School will continue to provide a quality preschool and childcare program for Glendale's growing population of working parents. The large-scale commercial development in Glendale increases the need for nearby childcare. The program will have no enrollment restrictions. It is open to all and is aimed specially to serve those who live and or work in Glendale. St. Anne's will provide a safe and healthy environment for children. This facility has been approved for this use by the Department of Fire and County Health. The program is licensed by the State Department of Social Services. The surrounding property is fully developed with multi-family homes and high school. A fenced portion of the parking lot right now is used for outdoor play. To prevent excessive noise, children will have staggered midday playtimes. The facility has adequate parking for school staff of 4 to 5. Increase in traffic flow will be minimal. Arrival and pickup times are between 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., 12 noon, and 2 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Arrival and pickup are off-street through Circular Drive. The property is well landscaped. No additional utilities are needed. I would respectfully request that the school be granted the conditional use permit for more than 5 years and, if possible, up to 10 years. And I'd like to thank Mr. Combs for all his help. Thank you.
We have very helpful staff here, so. Okay, just a few questions. Your license from the state, does it specify the maximum number of students that you can have, your current license?
Yes, it does specify that I can have 35 children at a given time.
Okay.
And I cannot exceed more than 35. So I was thinking, then I called up the licensing and talked to them, and they said that you can have 2 shifts as long as at any given time there are no more than 35 children.
Okay. So 35 is still the maximum?
Yes.
Because I was thinking, when you mentioned 40, it's really doing it the other way. What she should have done is go to the state first, get the okay for 40 to be the maximum at any given time, and then come here. But I cannot give her the 40 without the state, allowing it. So we'll just say maximum of 35 students at any given time. So it's up to you how many shifting you can do. But
so I can do the shifts, but I will have 35 at all time, at any given time.
Exactly, at any given time.
Correct.
Because fire department will have to look into that if you're going to go into shifting.
Okay.
I think L.A. County will also be looking into that. But my intent is to keep the maximum amount of children at 35, which is what we have previously granted. And what's the church again? The church.
It's the Glendale Grace Church.
Okay, it's still an active,
It's an active
working
church,
church.
yes.
Okay, because your application, as you know, is attached to the church facility. So we
Yes,
just want to make sure.
The church did change ownership, so now we have a new owner.
Okay, that's okay. And how long have you been
This would be my 6th year in.
successful years?
Thank you.
And I have no problem giving you a renewal for a longer period of time, since we don't have any issues or concerns from other departments.
Okay, I
And,
appreciate that. Thank you.
I was gonna. I was trying to identify the area where you normally have your
Classrooms.
classrooms, or could you come up here? And,
Sure.
It seems
So
to me that,
this
yeah.
would be one classroom, and it's a big. These two,
Okay.
and I would use this as another classroom,
Okay.
and this would be my school office. So this is the property I use in the
Okay.
church.
And play area is over there.
This is the
Okay.
play area, which is fenced. So.
Yes, that's good. Come in here and then go around there.
They come in from the parking
Yeah.
lot from here, behind the building.
Okay, good. So I'm going to change your conditions to 35 students.
And in the future, if I want these shifts, I have to inform you also, or only the health
Right.
and the fire?
Any expansion, any additional student, you're going to have to come back and redo your conditional use permit, because we're going to still limit it to 35 students. And your hours of operation is 7 a.m. Until 6 p.m. That's what we have here. Okay.
I just set 6:30 in case sometimes the parents are late, or
That's okay. As
Yeah.
long as the class
Correct.
itself is
Yeah.
until 6. What's the age range of your students?
Our age ranges from 2 years up to entry to first grade. So we could have children who are 6 or 6.5 because of the date, the cutoff date they have for schools for first grade.
Okay. And James already recommended giving you up to 7 years, so I'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
And seeing we have a very big crowd behind you, do you have any closing comments?
No, just
That's it.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you very much. Thank you, James and Dennis. With that, I'm going to go ahead, take your case under submission, and we'll let you know. And I'm closing the public hearing at 10:55 in the morning. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, James.
Thank you.
First time.